We can all agree that something different needs to happen at Mercedes. Despite numerous promises that they would come back stronger this season, that didn't really seem to be the case, especially after Bahrain Grand Prix. As the data shows, Mercedes has been overtaken by Aston Martin, and as a result, they are the fourth fastest team on the grid, a position lower than last season. It gets even worse though. They may even be forced to forfeit their chance at fighting for the Constructors' Championship and instead support Aston Martin. But why? Well, let's find out, you eager beavers. During qualifying in Bahrain, it was revealed that Mercedes weren't sandbagging like we all thought. It became clear that Aston Martin was a real threat to them because their lap time was over half a second slower than the frontrunners. And if the season's start is anything to go by, Mercedes can say goodbye to hopes of winning this championship. But we all know that the first race doesn't always dictate the rest of the season, as we saw with Red Bull last year, with both cars failing to finish the first race, but the team eventually winning the Constructors' Championships. After finishing 5 in 7 in Bahrain, Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff termed that the performance was their worst in racing. Well, one of the worst days in racing, really not good at all. We were just lacking pace in the front, right, and center. That's a reflection of the tests. The Aston Martin is very fast, they deserve it. I think that's what hurts, because they're so far ahead. It reminds me of our best years, where we would just put a second on everybody else. That's the benchmark, but we need to put one step after the other to just come back. And we can do that. Absolutely we can, said Wolff. Mercedes driver George Russell said after the Bahrain race, I think after yesterday we thought we had a chance of fighting the Ferraris and the Aston Martins, and that clearly wasn't the case. The fact is, we didn't have enough performance in the car. I think yesterday exceeded our expectations. Today's probably back to reality, and we just need to get back to the drawing board and keep on working. He went on to add that, when you have a fast race car, everything becomes easier. The strategy is better, the tire management's better. Race starts are a bit better because you have more grip and downforce. And today, just everything wasn't where it needed to be. So yeah, work to do. After the first race, it was clear that Aston Martin had built a great car around the Mercedes engine, which was embarrassing for Mercedes given their poor start. So what went wrong with Mercedes? Why is it not working for them? Before we delve into that, let's take a look at Aston Martin. Aston Martin has made significant gains this year. Last year, they were the 7th fastest team on the grid, and they could barely make it out of Q3. But after the first race this season, they appear to be the 2nd fastest. How did they jump from being at the back of the grid to being on the podium on the very first race of the season? First and foremost, the team has been very open-minded about adopting different car designs and ditching the ones that aren't working. We saw the team incorporate a new side pod design into their 2022 car in Spain, and we believe that they made strides in the right direction, which was a major boost for their 2023 car. A second and very important move was to sign two-time world champion Fernando Alonso as their driver, rather than after Sebastian Vettel announced his retirement at the end of 2022 season, leaving an empty seat at Aston Martin. The team's also got new staff, notably Dan Follows, who worked in Red Bull's aerodynamics department alongside Adrian Newey, who's frankly the best aerodynamicist in Formula One. Here's a quick old recap of how the Aston Martin team has been faring so far. During preseason testing, Alonso's lap times were comparable to those of Red Bull drivers, showing that the team had a competitive car. During free practice in Bahrain, Alonso topped the chart a few times. It seemed that they had a really good car, and it kept getting even better when he qualified at P5 ahead of Mercedes drivers. Lance Stroll, who didn't attend testing and could barely turn the car well during practice after suffering hand injuries, qualified at P8. It all seemed too good to be true for Aston Martin, but it was true. With the drivers Alonso and Stroll finishing 3rd and 6th respectively in the season opener, Aston Martin got off to a strong start. At this point, the team is 2nd in the constructor standings. Based on the team's performance in the opening race, they stand a great chance of challenging for the championship this year. However, it's still early in the season, and they will need to maintain their momentum to stay competitive. Speaking after the race, Alonso said, "It's the perfect start for this season. We didn't expect it to be that competitive. I think the aim in 2023 was to get in the mix with the midfield, maybe leading that midfield and get close to the top 3 teams eventually." When asked if Aston Martin might need to reset their targets for the coming season, Alonso said, "Let's see, I have the same feeling from testing, like too good to be true. And you're always expecting that you'll need to take a step back and then you'll get humbled and sent back to reality, but it seems real, the performance. Let's see in Jeddah." I'm very curious to get to Jeddah and Australia, very different circuits. I think in Bahrain we were strong in things that maybe we didn't find in Jeddah and Australia. If we're strong in the next two races, I think we're going to have a very good 2023. Now back to Mercedes. This team has been very adamant that their zero sidepod design wasn't the reason for the team's failure last season, hence the reason why they chose to retain it. But given their recent performances, it's evident that it isn't working. Hamilton expressed his frustration with the team, complaining that they completely disregarded his suggestions to change the car. Clearly, something's got to go, something's got to change, and that needs to happen soon. Otherwise, it's game over for the Silver Arrows. This team has been issued an ultimatum for Mercedes headquarters. As much as Formula One is a sport, it is also a business, which is why the Mercedes owners may be looking to shift their focus to Aston Martin, in which they own a 20% stake. According to a post by The Objective, Mercedes has been given 2 races to turn their fortunes around. And if they're unable to do so, the upper management's gonna start focusing on supporting Aston Martin in their championship battle. The shareholders' desire to make this decision it's understandable. Mercedes ain't performing, but Aston Martin is. It's a simple fact. To get the most out of that situation, Mercedes owners have to make a decision that keeps their brand name good, because Aston Martin's wins are going to be associated with the Mercedes engine. Furthermore, success for Aston Martin means increased profit for the team and the shareholders. But you're probably wondering, how's that going to happen? Well, Mercedes supplies engines to Williams, McLaren, and Aston Martin. Previously, Mercedes has been keeping the best engines for themselves and giving the rest to the teams that they supply, which might change, because if they're unable to recover, they're going to be forced to give their best engines to Aston Martin, and that'll be embarrassing for the team. Fernando Alonso stole the show in Bahrain after a brilliant drive. He wowed the fans with his overtaking skills and his speed, proving that he still had it despite being the oldest driver on the grid. It's no surprise that Mercedes shareholders want to support Aston Martin. They're sure that with the great motivation and skill set of Alonso, they could challenge Red Bull and Ferrari in the title fight. On the brighter side, this provides another learning opportunity for Mercedes. As Hamilton boldly claims, Aston Martin cars are half of the Mercedes cars, as they share an engine, gearbox, and rear suspension. Aston Martin also uses a Mercedes wind tunnel. If they're able to make such a good car with all these resources, maybe Mercedes can too. However, Wolff has thrown in the towel and declared that they're now concentrating on the 2024 car and season, because they're not going to be able to win the championship with the W14 if the changes they make to the W14 don't work. The team is said to be bringing radical changes to the car, particularly a new sidepod design, in the coming races. We can hope that the changes are effective. Pressure is on Toto Wolff and technical director Mike Elliott to lead the team to bounce back in the way that they hope for. The team's recent performance has been really disappointing, to say the least, and they need to make significant improvements to stay competitive. Fans and sponsors are eagerly waiting for the team's response to the current situation. Do you think Mercedes can make a quick turnaround in the next 2 races? Are the shareholders being fair in giving that ultimatum? Share your thoughts with us, much like the shareholders share their holds. That's it for today, guys. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video. Make sure to end your viewing in style by hitting the subscribe button for more amazing F1 content. Clever, right? Till next time, cheers.